A very good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us again. Day 3 of Fintech Week Tel Aviv. I was just saying it actually feels like month 3 of the conference, but it's been fantastic, and we are very, very privileged today to have with us Vice Minister Vaida. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the Vice Minister's last name. And Lithuania is very, very much like Israel. It's a small country that punches above its weight especially in the tech sector, but especially the fintech sector. They have a very active and wonderful ecosystem. We'll see a little bit more today with the BCCS cluster when they present this afternoon. We have a very good relationship with the Lithuanian ecosystem, and long may that continue. But without further ado, it gives me great pleasure and a huge privilege to introduce the Vice Minister, who is going to give us a little insight into activity in Lithuania. So thank you very much again for joining us, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning to everyone who has joined me and Johnny in opening the third day of the Fintech Week Tel Aviv. As was presented, my name is Vaida. I'm Vice Minister of Finance of Lithuania, and today I will share my insights on how policymakers can drive fintech innovation and shape the industry. So before diving into my presentation, let's address the elephant in the room, why we are even talking about Lithuania. So the answer to this question is quite straightforward. According to the Global FinTech Index rank, Lithuania ranks 4th globally in terms of fintech hubs across the world. After Brexit, Lithuania is actually number 1 fintech hub in the EU. And Lithuania has the highest number of licensed e-money and payment institutions in all European Union. And we also rank high in terms of the ease of starting business and FDI attraction. So now let me just quickly base these ratings with the statistics. I will try to show you the presentation. I'm not sure if it is visible to you. Okay, so now it's here. So there are already 230 fintech companies operating in Lithuania. And the number has doubled in the last 4 years. So in 2007, we had 117 companies, and now it reached 230. Most of them are working in the field of payments, and by the end of 2020, there were 80 e-money institutions and 52 payment institutions operating in Lithuania. The total last 4 years. We are also searching for ways to help challenger banks enter the market, and we already have 5 banks operating under the specialized banking license, with 2 more banks starting their operations this year. And the sector now employs more than 4,000 people. The companies expect this number to grow by at least 1,000 people by the end of 2021. And one of the main trends in the fintech sector last year was revenue growth. So even though we had COVID pandemic and many sectors saw the loss of their revenues, but the fintech sector was the opposite. And Invest Lithuania surveyed 87 fintech companies, and almost 90% of them saw an increase in revenue, with as many as 30 of surveyed companies reaching more than 100% revenue growth. So the numbers are really impressive. And many of the surveyed companies also expect their sector's revenue to grow rapidly in 2021. Investments to Lithuania-based tech startups has also grown 30 times between 2016 and 2019. Even though there was a decrease in 2020, in this year, we are going strong with 13 deals in total, and there will be more than 20 million euros raised in the first quarter. These numbers might not seem impressive in absolute terms, but they show how rapidly the sector is growing. So now we naturally arrive at the question, what policymakers are doing to build a successful sector in the country? In order to answer that, we have a broader view on the drivers for fintech innovation. So in my personal opinion, the first driver is technology, be it or something more advanced, such as using artificial intelligence, big data, algorithm in lending, or maybe even quantum computing, which potential hasn't yet been fully developed. The second driver is bright minds, startups that find ways how to use these technologies in the financial sector. We probably wouldn't be talking about CBDCs if there was never a mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto. The third driver is the customers. They shape the demand for services. Now, sometimes the second and the third drivers are not enough. So here we have the fourth driver, policymakers that have to step in. So how did the fourth driver shape fintech industry in Lithuania? Let's have a quick look back at the previous decade. Around 10 years ago, Lithuania's banking sector started to concentrate. Some banks faced bankruptcy, some left the country, hence the competition weakened, and few incumbent banks that were left were not motivated enough to innovate at that time. This meant that not only there were not many alternative services for the customers, but also the services that were provided were not. Policymakers came together in 2016 and put a plan in place, and fundamentally provided the opportunity for all the three drivers, technology, to build the competition in the Lithuanian financial sector. Now let's talk more about the measures we took to increase competition in the financial sector. Firstly, all stakeholders were gathered, and the Intergovernmental Fintech Working Group was established. And it created our National Fintech Action Plan. So stakeholders sitting at one table search for solutions and measures that each institution can take to overcome the challenges faced by fintech companies. I'm again not sure if you see my slides, so I'll try to put them on again. Okay, but in the meantime, I'll just continue and then let's see if you can see the screen. So, gathered all the stakeholders, established the Fintech Working Group and the National Fintech. We, being a small country, needed to provide reasons for both startups and international companies to operate in Lithuania. And Lithuanian regulator ensured that the licensing process will be much faster and will take only 3 months, instead of the average 6 months or even longer in other EU jurisdictions. We have also created a specialized bank license, which makes it easier for challenger banks to enter the market. Lithuania itself is obviously a small market. However, our selling point is that our market participants can passport their services in the whole EU single market, which is about 500 million customers. Furthermore, payment companies can access the single euro payments area, SEPA, via Central Link. And it is a payment system developed by the Bank of Lithuania, our regulator. We believe that it is important to be open to new technologies, learn from existing practices, and be proactive in what is needed. We always try to provide and help and advise new market entrants via our newcomer program or regulatory sandbox. The third important aspect is that not only we need, okay, now you probably see the slides, I'll just put it in the right place. So the third aspect is that not only we need to help new companies to enter, existing companies have the flexibility and resources to expand. So firstly, we need to ensure that there is adequate supply of talents in the country. And Lithuanian universities are reacting to market changes by introducing new fintech-related studies. Secondly, it is very important to have infrastructure, starting from office spaces and rent costs to something more advanced, such as access to SEPA that I have already mentioned. And regarding infrastructure and cost, there are a lot of real estate development projects in our capital, Vilnius, and the average salary here in Lithuania is quite competitive in comparison to other Western EU countries. The third aspect is to ensure adequate financing sources, from countries' financial support programs to venture capital funding. As I mentioned in the beginning, more venture capitalists and angels are investing in Lithuanian tech startups. Furthermore, we strive to help startups attract investments by initiating various activities. Fourthly, we, the policymakers, should always be in line with new trends and review our policies constantly. Last but definitely not least is the risk management. The fintech sector is relatively new and young, which means that from many smaller companies' perspective, the two main goals are to innovate, to introduce new and innovative products or service to the market, and secondly, to grow customer base. And accordingly, young companies have to understand both risks and compliance rules, and they need experience. So having said that, we see that there are a few main sources of risks. The first source is money laundering and terrorist financing. In order to ensure deeper understanding and prevention of AML and CTF risks, as well as a closer cooperation between private and public sector, we established AML Competence Center, and we expect that it will start its daily operations in the second half of this year. Furthermore, while there are many new companies in the sector now getting older, we can see that companies are moving from the first stage of increasing customer base to a more sophisticated compliance stage, with pressure stemming from peers. Fintech associations have created AML groups where companies share insights and experience. The other source stems from ensuring proper customer data and also cybersecurity. And here we have EU-level legislation proposals currently being discussed at the EU Council, where Lithuania is actively participating. So to conclude, my message is that Lithuanian policymakers identified many challenges for fintech companies to start their operations in Lithuania, then collectively search for ways to overcome those challenges while also ensuring risk management. So now let's take a look into the future. How can we stay on the top of the new trends? So in Lithuania, we have been actively working on creating favorable conditions for fintechs for already 5 years. Hence, many of the vertical issues and legislative mismatches have already been solved. However, now we see the need to work more on horizontal issues that affect not only our financial sector, but economy as a whole. And I have chosen 5 trends that I would like to attract your attention to. So first is data sharing. As digitalization of services is gaining momentum, they are gathering loads of data. When we say that we need to open data, we not only mean the personalized data for statistics or learning purposes, but also personal data for client servicing reasons. As a country, we are taking steps to open data in the machine learning format, as well as find ways to encourage data sharing between government registries and market participants to ease customers' onboarding. Second is digital identity. In order to access digital services, people need to have some kind of digital identity. In Lithuania, the most common used approach is the third-party identifier, where customers can access services via their bank ID. But looking ahead, we need to think about alternatives, maybe even create a self-sovereign model, let's say, by using blockchain technology. This is a far-fetched idea, but I'm sure that we will start. We are already looking for ways to fight against the red tape by exploring GovTech, RegTech, SupTech solutions. Even though most of the services are digitalized, a lot is still done manually, so there is a huge need for automatization. That is why our regulator has already introduced new measures for automated. Fourth is tokenization. While it's being difficult to regulate, as an idea is very interesting. It is also possible to create completely new digital assets and monetize human experiences. Tokenization is removing territorial barriers and opening the market to small investors. I'm very interested to see what kind of new tokenized assets we will see in the near future. Lastly, shifting attention to our financial services, looking ahead, we are quite happy how the payment sector is evolving. And based on that, we will be working to ensure that other sectors, such as crowdfunding, insurtech, wealth tech, would also grow at a faster pace. So that is all from my side, and I would be happy to answer your questions.
Any questions from the audience? Don't be shy. Okay, I think people are still waking up or are a bit shy, but I want to thank you for kicking off day 3 of FinTech Week. Thank you very much for a very insightful and enjoyable presentation. We're sorry, we are at the mercy of internet connections as well with virtual. So all I can say is, hopefully next year we will all meet physically in Vilnius and in Tel Aviv, and we'll carry on the conversation. We do.